Thank you. Did you ever hear the old fable about the man who was riding across the desert at night, and as he was crossing a dry riverbed, a voice came out of the darkness ordering him to halt? The voice then said, "Now get off your horse or camel or whatever it was he was riding," and the man got off, and the voice said, "Pick up some gravel from the riverbed." Well, the man did, and then the voice said, "Now mount and ride on. In the morning you'll be both glad and sorry." Well, when it became light enough, the rider looked at what he had picked up in the riverbed and discovered it wasn't gravel at all. It was a handful of precious gems, and as the voice had said, he was both glad and sorry. Glad he had picked up a few, and sorry he hadn't picked up more. Like most fables, this one is based on human nature, and I guess it's particularly true here in America. I think we all realize that we're living in the richest country the world has ever known. As a matter of fact, we're right in the middle of the golden era man has dreamed of and hoped for since the days of Pythagoras, Plato, and Aristotle. The American worker, compared to the incomes earned in most countries, particularly those on the shady side of the Iron Curtain, is a wealthy man. Compare his income and his standard of living to even Americans of 50 years ago, and he's a regular tycoon. But most modern American families are like the man in the fable who picked up a few precious stones thinking they were gravel. They're glad to have such a high standard of living, but about 95% of them wind up sorry, because they never woke up to the fact that financial independence has nothing at all to do with the money you're paid, but only with the money you save. Out of 100 young American men who all start even at age 25, 40 years later, when they would be 65, only 1 out of the original 100 is well-to-do. 4 are financially independent for life, and the rest, the 95%, didn't make it. Now, this wouldn't sound so bad maybe in some famine-ridden, undernourished, and depressed country, but this terrible situation is going on right here in the richest country on earth. The average American income is something around $6,000 a year. The average working man works for 40 years. If he saved only 10 cents out of every dollar he earned for himself and his family, he'd save $24,000 not counting interest, which would practically double it. It's a little-known fact that regardless of what a man happens to do for a living, he can be financially independent for life by the time he's 65 if he'll only give a dime out of every dollar to the forgotten man, himself, and the forgotten family, his own. Here's an interesting little test you can make. Take the number of years you've been married, times your income, times 10%. That's how much you should have in a permanent, never-touched savings program for your later years. If it comes out right, or better, you belong to the top 5% of the people in this country. If it's less, you're in the 95% boat, and this is not a good boat to be in. As old Ben Franklin said one time, a long time ago, the way to wealth is as plain as the way to market. Waste neither time nor money, but make the best use of both. Until next time, when I think I'll have something you'll be interested in, this is Earl Nightingale reminding you that unless you're saving at least 10% of your gross income, you are probably making your most serious mistake. You're paying on the mortgage, the car, the refrigerator, and you can't very well duck the tax man. Just make sure you're not cheating the person you're going to be in a few years. Thank you. Thank you. You know, the experts are forever coming up with long words meant to describe the problems that we humans are complex enough to develop. And not too long ago, they came up with a dandy. They use it to describe the feeling us poor men get, particularly the man who finds a lump like a watermelon with thorns right in the pit of his stomach. The word is panophobia, and it means fear of everything. This is the word that fits the man or woman who seems to have vague, undefined fears. Fears that he can't quite put his finger on. Like the hard-working man who suddenly begins to fear that the company is sharpening the axe for his neck. Or the wife who, for no reason she can articulate, begins to fear her husband is slowly drifting away. Now, there's no medicine known that can cure this emotional malady that daily puts its icy clamp on the insides of millions of commuters, although the tremendous sales of tranquilizers is a tip-off to the emotional teeter-totter most people seem to be on the wrong end of. It wouldn't surprise me if before long they started selling bags of hot buttered tranquilizers in theaters. But there is a way out. It seems that the majority of people do just barely enough to get by at whatever they do for a living, and this is possibly because of our unusually high standard of living, where earning a living wage is about as tough as eating a piece of pie a la mode. Maybe it's because of our play palaces that pass along disguised as colleges, but the facts are hard to argue with. It seems that every good and upright human being gets emotionally frightened when he begins to realize that he's getting paid for more than he's doing. Of course, he'd die on the rack before he'd admit it, but you can't kid yourself, no matter how hard you try. So if you're suffering from a lump of faceless, unrecognized fear that has a habit of forming just behind your belt buckle, particularly on Monday mornings or late Sunday afternoons, you can cure yourself by throwing yourself headlong, not out of a window, but into your work. Start working as though we had a normal economy where people were paid only for the work they performed, measured by its depth of excellence. Become an expert at what you do for a living, and as you take more and more pride in your work, you'll find you like it better. You'll probably see your income inching up, you'll be happier, and one day you'll sit straight up and realize that this emotional panophobia tumor has disappeared. You'll probably smile, look around, and see the guy sitting next to you has that strained, tight-lipped, scared look that means he's caught it. A good way to get started is to sit down and decide on something you've wanted very much for a long time. Make up your mind you're going to have it, and then go to work to get it. You'll be too busy to worry about anything. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, the great German philosopher, once came up with a great truth that all of us ought to paste on the mirror of our medicine cabinets. He said, "Before you can do something, you've got to be something." Thank you. From time to time you hear somebody say, "You know, those people who got in on the ground floor of the opening of the West with its gold and silver really were fortunate, all that gold laying around waiting to be baled and carried to market." Or you'll hear them say, "And what about the early discoverers of our vast oil fields, all those derricks pumping millions of dollars worth of black gold and the folks who discovered it just sitting back and trying to keep their fortunes figured to the nearest million?" When I was a youngster back during the Depression of the 30s, we used to sit around and dream of things like that. Maybe you've done the same thing. Well, today I want to tell you about a place that's virtually unexplored, where you can find all the wealth you'll ever need. Maybe you've never thought much about it, but each of us has this private gold mine all staked out with a clear title just waiting to be developed. I want you to try to get a mental picture of a gold mine or an oil field before it was discovered. No busy, noisy machinery, no crowds of men moving around, no trucks and heavy equipment, just land, covered with prairie grass and stretching as far as the eye can see to the distant horizon. Now, under that peaceful and innocent-looking piece of prairie is a wide, deep lake of oil, or a motherlode of gold worth millions, but you'd never know it was there, would you? Before these discoveries were made, thousands of people must have rode and walked right over them without realizing that right under their feet was a king's ransom in riches beyond their wildest dreams. Somebody had to come along looking for it, and who was willing to risk digging for it, right? Somebody had to suspect it was there and start looking. And his chances of hitting pay dirt with his first shovelful were pretty slim, but he knew if he kept looking and kept digging, he'd find it. Well, you and I and everybody have free title to the richest continent on Earth. It's called the human mind, and it's produced just about everything you see and hear around you. It comes as standard equipment at birth, and maybe that's why most of us never use it. It came free, and we've come to the point where we don't value things that are free anymore. Your mind has 12 billions of cells, give or take a dozen or so, and fully 90 to 95% of it has never been explored. The greatest thing on earth is a good idea. Take the man who got the idea to dig under that prairie grass. Discovering a fortune was only the effect. His idea to dig was the cause, and it was his idea that resulted in millions for him. Now, how many ideas do you think you could get in a single day? 20? 30? Let's say you got 20 ideas a day. That'd be 100 a week if you didn't think on weekends. That would be 5,200 ideas a year. 5,200 holes you'd be drilling on the world's richest continent, your own mind. Well, remember, one idea can make you rich. All you need is one great idea which can be your gold mine, your oil well. If you know anything about the law of averages, you'll realize that before long you'll have the idea you've been looking for. Just because the first 10 or 100 aren't any good, don't give up. The more dry holes, the closer you are to what you're looking for, your big idea, the one that will change your life. The best way to prospect your mind is to get up an hour earlier in the morning and write down 20 ideas for improving what you now do for a living. The chances are that right now, as Russell Conwell used to say, right now you're standing right in the middle of your own acre of diamonds. What you're looking for is the idea that's bigger than you are, and that will keep you challenged and interested for a long time to come. Thank you. I was reading the other day about our universe and what we know and don't know about it, about the billions and billions of stars and planets, and of the millions of galaxies like our Milky Way, separated by distances so vast it takes light, which travels 186,000 miles per second, about 2 million years to cross these almost incomprehensible distances. We've got astronomers sitting in front of telescopes looking at stars not as they are now, but as they were 500 million years ago, because that's how long it took their light to reach us, give or take a few years. And I've got a hunch why astronomers and scientists are so curious, as we all are, about other worlds and other galaxies. It's partly because of what we call greener pastures, the hope that seems to spring eternal in all human beings that the living and opportunities are better and greater somewhere else. I suppose it has been this uniquely human attribute or frailty that's at the root of all discovery. But it's a fact that most people let this business of thinking the next pasture may be greener keep them from properly developing their own pasture. While we're looking at what the other guy is doing and wishing we were in his pasture, others are wishing they were in ours, and it's a proven fact that there's more opportunity hidden in our daily work than we could develop in a lifetime if we'll only look for it long enough to find it. I don't know if you've ever thought much about this, but there's no such thing as a job that can't lead to greatness if we'll take the time and thought to become great at what we do, at what we now do, where we are now. Unless we take the time, thought, and study to become outstanding at what we're now doing, why in the world should we think we could become great at something else? But somehow it always looks easier to succeed in the other fellow's line of work. It looked so good to me one time that I climbed the fence out of my pasture, and by the time I'd scrambled back in again, my little excursion cost me $30,000. I'd gone into a business where I was short on experience, and as it usually happens in such a case, I got burned on the wallet. If I'd devoted the same time and work to my own line of work, I'd have been much better off. Now, I'm not saying you can't go into another line or into a different business, but I am saying don't go into something unless you know everything it's possible to know about it, or most everything, and more important still, look long and carefully at the pasture you're now in. Chances are it's loaded with opportunities that someone else is going to come along and profit by if you don't. You see, if you merely compete with everybody else in your line of work, you've got to be satisfied with the same returns, the same rewards they're getting, and everyone else in the same field. But
the message of Earl Nightingale emphasizes how much our attitude determines our level of achievement in life. Whereas a negative attitude stunts our development and potential, a good attitude determines how life reacts to us. Our self-perception is very important, as our successes directly depend on our belief in our potential. Accepting change is vital. Seeing it as an opportunity rather than a threat promotes development and fresh experiences. Effective people stand out not in their natural ability or knowledge, but in their good attitude, which helps them to overcome obstacles and grab possibilities. Acting as if we are already successful, by treating people with respect, tackling chores with confidence, and keeping a good attitude, can greatly influence our success. Success depends on good contacts with people, as our behavior toward them shapes their reaction to us. Nightingale suggests a doable 30-day challenge, embracing a good attitude, treating everyone with dignity, and boldly facing life. This exercise aids in the development of enduring behaviors. Those around us may be inspired by keeping a good attitude, emphasizing on answers instead of problems, and talking about health and well-being. Key also is realizing and satisfying the basic human desire to feel significant, respected, and appreciated. Though we have a good mindset now, there is always opportunity for development. Little changes may result in grandeur. Internalizing and using these teachings will help us to change our attitudes and thus our life. thereby promoting more success and satisfaction.